Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of the Student Showcase. Just a reminder, if you weren't here yesterday, the students who are presenting today were participants in this year's International Virtual Science Symposium, and they earned the top score that you can earn. So that is a 4-star student research badge, as well as earning at least 2 additional badges. So these students created really wonderful projects, and then they were entered into a drawing to come join us here at the Student Showcase, as well as participate in the student experience, which we've been doing while other people have been doing other sessions. So I'm going to start now with our first group. I'm going to share my screen here and welcome our first presenters from Oman.
Hello everyone, I am Noura.
And I am Ayasa, and we are students from Umdar Al-Ghaffari Oman School.
And we are presenting the research about the death of aquatic and plant organisms in laboratory. Next.
Abstract. The research aimed to study the reason behind the death of aquatic organisms that are raised in a school laboratory, as well as the cause of plants being dry and eventually die, although they are planted under certain circumstances that they need to grow, like light, water, air, and warmth. Next.
The main question of the research are to treat this phenomenon. First, what is the cause that led to the death of aquatic organisms and the plant? Second, what is the reasons behind the change of water features? Third, what are the solutions? Next.
The time plan for preparing the research. In November, defining the problem response to water resource, preparing the project tools, water protocol tools, fenugreek seeds, legumes, and tulip, and aquatic organisms, fish and tadpole. In December, application of water protocol, microbiological analysis of water, analyze data and found solution, make recommendation, write and review the research. In January, entering the data into Globe website, making the business poster. In March, writing the research and participating in the research competition. Next.
This picture about the cleanliness of the tanks and water, a connection for the school laboratory and the school building in general. Next.
We applied this experiment to make sure that the main cause that lead to the death of aquatic and plant organisms is the metal pipes in school, which change the properties of water, cause the lack of oxygen in the water. Doing experiment by using drinking water and nails, making 4 samples, in each one of them the same quantity of water, but different number of nails. The first one 1 nail, and the second 2, the third 3, and the fourth 4, taking the pH, salinity, and conductivity daily and the oxygen weekly. It was noted that the fourth sample showed lower pH and oxygen values than the first, and the first sample showed lower salinity and conductivity values than the fourth. Next.
To answer the last question and find solution and treatment for the cause of the phenomenon of the death of aquatic and plant organisms in the laboratory, which might due to the reasons why female students suffer from hand sensitivity after using the tap water. After using the tap water in the school, we are going to visit the hospital to collect some information and statistics and learn about the impact of polluted water on an individual health. and we are going to visit the municipality and the civilization in general to study the problem and develop a solution, and finally researching and learning resource on the topic and search for a solution to the problem. Next.
First experiment, why do planets die in a school lab? We use healthy water and water from school lab. Boat 1 and boat 3 were watered using healthy water. Boat 2 and 4 were watered using lab water. The appearance of boat 1 and 3 was healthy green, but 2 and 4 was yellowish and light green. The number of seeds that have grown in boat 1 and 3 was more than boat 2 and 4. And the height of a planet was more in boat 1 and 3 than boat 2 and 4. Next.
The second experiment, why do aquatic organisms die in the school laboratory? You can see the tadpole and the fish who lived in the healthy water were in good healthy, but who lived in laboratory water died. And you can see the chart show the effect water source on plant growth. As you see, the plant which watered by healthy water longer than plants which watered by laboratory water. Next.
The result of the microbiological water test, coliform 12.4 equally 0, visual examination normal, TDS 140, which is excellent. The results show the appearance of coliform bacteria 12.4 because of the iron rust in the pipes. Next.
This chart shows the pH and the oxygen for laboratory water and main water source direct from the tank. As we can see, the pH and the oxygen values in the main source are healthier than laboratory water. Next.
Regarding the outcome, it's clear that the main cause that lead to the death of aquatic organisms is low percentage of water in the tap water. For the second question, it was avoid that the metal pipes are the main factors that cause the death of planets. To solve such a problem, we contact different community organizations like the STEM team and the municipality department. After further meeting and investigation, we agreed to change the pipes and educate the local people about the importance to using pipes made of thermal plastic polypropylene. Next.
Solution, we depend on the procedural approach to solve the research main question. At the end, we came up the various recommendations as follow. First, try on chemical analysis for drinking water. Second, found using metal pipes. Next.
And this is
please
the
wrap it
answer.
up.
Thank you for giving us this chance to participate.
Great job, thank you. Next up, we've got our students from Nigeria. Do we have any of our students from Nigeria ready to present?
I don't see any of their names in the participant list, no.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the next one, and we can come back to them if they join us later. Actually, we've got a Q&A, so we can open it up for questions for our students from Oman.
Thank you, Amy. Nora and Masa, we have a couple questions for you guys. First question is, did you guys drink the water in the school?
Repeat please the question.
Sure. So the first question is, do you drink the water in your school?
No, we use it in experiment, like we water the water, put water for plants and to aquatic organisms.
Okay. And we have another question, once again, for Nora and Marisa. First off, great job. So the question is, did you find any information or statistics that you weren't expecting or you were surprised about related to the impact of polluted water on individuals when visiting the hospitals for the information?
Yes, when we visited the hospital, they give us some information about the effect of iron rust in human health. It may be make eczema and stomach germs and nausea, and its affect negatively in human health.
And Nora, this question is for you. What would you change if you did anything different with your project? So Nora, once again, the question is directed to you. And the question is, what would you change if you did anything different with your project? Or if you would do it again, what would you change?
Change the pipes and use the thermoplastic properly.
Gotcha. And did you guys share your presentation to your schoolmaster?
Yes.
So I have one last question. And this question is, what was the most challenging part of your research? And what was the most fascinating part as well? So once again, I'll repeat the question. The question is, what was the most challenging part of your project? Okay, Nora, if you can unmute, what do you think was the most challenging part of this project?
Was there a part of the project that was really hard to do?
No.
Okay, well, Amy, that's all the questions that we have for this portion, so we can move on to the next session.
All right. Well, thank you so much, students from Oman.
Okay.
Next up, we've got a video from our students from Kenya.
Dynamics of malaria and crop production.
Hello everyone, my name is Mohammed Haji. I'll be presenting alongside with Manal Ahmed. We are from Sri Swaminarayan Academy in Mombasa County.
The title of our project is Assessing How Environmental Changes Affect the Distribution and Dynamics of Malaria and Crop Production Using Satellite-Based Ndvi. Ndvi stands for Normalized Difference Vegetation Index. It is a graphical indicator that can be used to determine the amount of vegetation cover on the surface of the Earth remotely using a space platform. It is important to determine vegetation cover on the Earth's surface because any changes in vegetation cover affects our health, economy, and environment. Ndvi quantifies vegetation by measuring the difference between near-infrared, which plants strongly reflect, and red visible light, which plants absorb. Ndvi is calculated by this formula. A value of 0 means no vegetation, example a tundra or desert, and close to positive 1 indicates the highest possible density of green leaves.
Problems in Homa Bay. Unfortunately, Homa Bay suffers from two main issues: food shortage and diseases. Although the main activity in Homa Bay is farming, there is a major food shortage problem. And malaria is also a rampant issue in Homa Bay. These diseases cause less workforce and labor in farms. This adds to the problem of food shortage.
Therefore, our research questions were: is there a correlation between Ndvi and weather conditions? Is there a correlation between malaria occurrence and weather conditions? And is there a correlation between Ndvi and crop yield?
Procedure. We collected normalized data used in this project from the Homa Bay High School weather station. This data included data on precipitation, humidity, temperature. We also collected raw crop data from farmers in Homa Bay. We used this data to calculate crop yield. Using this data, we could create graphics such as line graphs and a correlation matrix. Line graphs showed us the change of data over a period of time, and the correlation matrix was used to observe positive and negative correlations with our data. We created such graphics and normalized our data using various formulas in Microsoft Excel.
This is a line graph showing the correlation between Ndvi and weather conditions at Homa Bay between January 2017 and February 2018. The highest recordings of Ndvi obtained were during the months of May and November 2017. During the month of May, humidity and precipitation recorded the highest values of 1, while temperature recording was very low. In November, humidity value was high while precipitation was low. Temperature value of 0 was recorded. Between May and July 2017, recording steadily decreased from 0.45 to 0.41. During this period, there was also a decrease in precipitation. The temperature recording was also quite low. Malaria is transmitted by the Anopheles mosquito, which breathes in stagnant water during the rainy seasons. It is clear from our data that there was a high vegetation cover and precipitation in May, which could have increased mosquito population, leading to an increased malaria occurrence. Between August and October 2017, malaria occurrence was at its lowest. This could be due to low vegetation cover.
Between weather parameters and Ndvi, we noticed a positive correlation between humidity and Ndvi. We noticed a negative correlation between precipitation and Ndvi. And we noticed a negative correlation between temperature and Ndvi. In malaria occurrence and Ndvi, we noticed a negative correlation, and with crop yield and Ndvi, we noticed a positive correlation.
This is raw data of maize yield collected from farmers in Homa Bay. Maize, which is the staple food in Homa Bay, is usually planted just before the rainy seasons of February to March and September to October. During May and November, the maize plants are growing and appear very green in color. Maize is harvested in June, and in July the maize stalks are left to dry and they turn yellow in color. Healthy plants or crops are green in color due to chlorophyll. The green in plants and crops resonates with Ndvi. This is why there is high Ndvi when crop yield is healthy and promising good harvest.
So how can Ndvi help with food shortage in Homa Bay? Using Ndvi, we can help monitor crop health using Ndvi satellite technology. Farmers can predict when is the best time for planting, harvesting. Farmers can predict droughts, future crop yields. Farmers will become more efficient using Ndvi technology. And this will certainly help with the food crisis in Homa Bay.
That was a great video. Thank you, students. Next up, let me share my screen again here. We've got a presentation from our students from Saudi Arabia. And just a reminder, you've got 7 minutes.
Hi. Hi, my name is Nasser. Hello, my name is Raghat Bahri and Amasi Dagasi from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia Education. The study aims to compare the soil of Wadi Besh and the soil of the Besh Coast in agriculture. When we studied soil protocol, we started asking, number 1, what is the effect of the soil of the plains of Wadi Besh and the soil of the Besh Coast in agriculture? Number 2, Is there a relationship between the acidity of the soil and the amount of bicarbonate on agriculture? And now we go to Amasi.
Hi, I am Amasi. Besh Coast area is less plant, while the plains of Wadi Besh is many plant. And in the being exploited is the economy in crop cultivation. For this reason, we made a comparison between the soil of Wadi Besh and the soil of the coasts. We found that the acidity of the soil affects plant foods and constitute an obstacle to plant growth. Okay, next page, please. Until we do. Please, doctor, next. Okay. Research method. We brought 6 types of soil, different types of plains of Wadi Besh, and 3 different types of soil from the coasts of Besh. We add vinegar to study the degree of carbonates in soil types. We also planted seeds in different types of soil and waited for a month. Please, next, please. Table number 1. Table number 1 shows the degree of acidity in soil of the plains. Table number 2, it shows the alkalinity of coastal soils. There was also difference in soil colors from the same place. And when we add vinegar, there was a difference in the amount of bicarbonate from one soil to another. When we planted, we noticed that it grew well in the soil of the plains. It did not grow well in coastal soil. And we knew that the soil of Wadi Besh is soilable for agriculture because it's natural. But the soil of the coasts of Besh has a high acidity and is not suitable for cultivation until it is repaired. Okay, please next, doctor. Please next. Yes. Until we do the experiment, we brought different types of soil and added vinegar to know the amount of bicarbonate then planted. Okay, we noticed that there is an inverse relationship between acidity and the amount of bicarbonate and the cultivation of Besh lands. This study helps to develop agriculture in the coasts of Beige and confirms reduce acidity in the soil to get good soil for agriculture. Finish.
Hi, sorry. Great job, students. Next, we're going to go back, and our students from Nigeria have joined us, I believe. And so we're going to turn it over to them to present theirs. Are you here, students? St. Peter's?
Please again?
No, you guys.
I just admitted them. I just admitted.
Okay. All right.
تقول عمل عظيم. الحمد لله. Yes, yes. I am happy because I am
Do we have our students from Nigeria here?
Yes,
ready?
yes, I am very happy because I am going to the job. It's very, very excellent.
Great, go ahead. Just a reminder, you've got 7 minutes.
Amy, that wasn't the Nigeria team. I think they're still connecting to audio.
Yes, Amy. These were the Saudi Arabia. Sorry.
Okay, sorry,
So I think they were confused.
Okay, well, we'll come back to them. Let's go ahead and do a Q&A for our students from Saudi Arabia and Kenya, sorry. And then we can have our presentation from the students from Nigeria after that.
Okay, sounds good. Here's a question for our friends from Saudi Arabia. The question is, was doing your science project different than what you thought it would be? And did you guys have fun? So once again, this question is for Saudi Arabia, for Amasi and Raghat. The question is, was doing your science project different than what you thought it would be? And did you have fun?
Please again. I don't listen.
Sure, I understand. Did you enjoy your project? Was it fun? For your project, did you enjoy the process? Did you have fun?
Yes, I am fun.
What did you like about your project?
Please in Arabic. Please in Arabic.
Oh, I wish I spoke out Arabic.
I can speak Arabic. Okay, I can speak Arabic.
Perfect.
Okay, Peter, what was the question again? Sorry.
Not a problem. So the question is, what was doing your science project different than what you thought it would be? And did you have fun?
المشروع بتاعكم كان في أي اختلاف عن اللي انتوا اعتقدتوه؟ يعني انتوا بتشتغلوا في المشروع، هل اعتقدتوا ان هو اختلف عن النتيجة اللي انتوا كنتوا متوقعينها قبل ما تبدأ المشروع؟ وبرضو هل استمتعتوا بالمشروع ولا كان في مشاكل قبلكم فغيرت رأيكم؟
Yes. My work is not difficult, and I am happy, very happy when we go to the work. Number two, my work not difficult. We were very happy reason the work is fantastic and excellent. Number three, I am very happy because go to the world reason
لو تحبي
the
تتكلمي
world.
بالعربي، لو تحبي تتكلمي بالعربي وانا اقول لك
أنا
مش
قلت
مشكلة.
لم نجد أي صعوبة في هذا العمل. ثانيا العمل كان متوقع، كل اللي سويناه كان متوقع، يعني العمل اللي سويناه هو نفسه اللي فكرنا فيه، هو اللي أنجزناه. ونحن سعيدون لأننا فعلنا هذا العمل ووصلنا إلى هذا المستوى والحمد لله.
هل استمتعتوا بالعمل؟
نعم استمتعنا كثيرا.
عظيم جدا. Okay, so they said that everything actually happened exactly as expected. So nothing has, none of the expectations were not met during the project that they worked on, and also they were so happy with the results, and they had a lot of fun working on that project.
Thank you, Islam, and thank you for your hard work. The next question is for our family members in Kenya. The question is, first off, I love the fact that you use Ndvi satellite technology with your research. So the question is, what would be the next steps to help incorporate satellite technology with farmers understanding crop yield and whatnot? How would you go to the next step with your research?
Well, I guess I can answer that question. So currently, farmers in Homa Bay and generally in Kenya, they use traditional methods regarding farming. Technology such as Ndvi is far out from their knowledge. So maybe communication and educating the farmers in Homa Bay about this technology, about the data we found. But our project was mainly about observing and analyzing the data.
Gotcha. Thank you very much for your hard work. We have one more question for Saudi Arabia. So Islam, hopefully you can help me to translate this. The question is, they like to hear about chlorophyll and your project in Saudi Arabia, and in the other project about so it's multiple questions. So the question would be, like to hear about chlorophyll and your project in Saudi Arabia. Your work is thrilling, and my family members, want to know about prize for discovery. So basically the question would be understanding in chlorophyll with their project. If you can help me translate that, Islam.
وصل ولا هم السؤال اللي حد بيسألكم بيقول لكم عايز يعرف عن الكلوروفيل في المشروع بتاعكم في السعودية.
كيف يا دكتور؟
هو بيسأل عن نعم.
عن ايش؟
الكلوروفيل.
يس.
في المشروع بتاعكم. هو بيسأل
أيوة.
عن الكلوروفيل في المشروع بتاعكم.
ما استخدمنا، نحن لم نستخدم الكلوروفيل، استخدمنا الخل علشان نكتشف قياس الحموضة في التربة، ما استخدمنا الكلوروفيل.
اوكي. هو بقية السؤال بيقول ان هو عائلته يعني فرحانين بيكم جدا ومبسوطين جدا بالشغل بتاعكم بالمشروع بتاعكم.
الحمد لله.
اوكي.
احنا واحنا كمان فرحانين الحمد لله، ان شاء الله اننا انجزنا يا رب وشاركنا والحمد لله والتقينا فيكم الحمد لله والشكر يا رب.
عظيم جدا. طبعا هترجم لهم. So they said that actually they did not use chlorophyll, they used vinegar, and that's what they used, and they're very happy for that comment in that question from whoever asked that question. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, both of you, for your projects,
you.
your hard work during a very difficult year. So at this point, I think we're going to end the Q&A session and turn it back over to Amy. So Amy, I'm
Okay.
going to turn it back over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Not sound. Please, please, doctor, not sound. You are not sound.
هم واخدين دلوقتي راحة دلوقتي ناخدها لمدة يعني لغاية 11 لغاية 5 دقايق بس كمان. اوكي 5 دقايق راحة وهنرجع تاني.
All right, we're going to take a break now. We will be back again in 7 minutes. And we'll start again with our students from Nigeria. All right. See you soon. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. We are going to begin again, and let me load up the correct slides, and we'll begin again in just a minute. All right, we're going to begin with our students from St. Peter's Unity Secondary School in Nigeria. So if you guys can unmute, and I'll turn it over to you to present.
Good day, everyone. My name is Brian Mayevski. Hello, I'm Sushi and Otijadela. We are starting from Center in Secondary School Akure. I have to defend our project tied to the effect of organization of surface, air, and soil temperature in Akure, Nigeria. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Now, to the abstract, there are some first and first affected by organization. Thereby leading to some impact. So thereby leading to some problems such as the ecosystem. And this has influenced on the evapotranspiration and energy cycle. These are collected from different observational sites, such as the school farm, the school feed, and the cemented soil and school area, and schools at large, Akure at large, Nigeria. And during our research, we started on October 2020 to February 2021 with a range of 5 months. And we also make use of the cloud cover to make it to identify our clouds, different clouds we have in Nigeria, and record our test analysis with the use of ANOVA, pairs of ANOVA and Ndvi. And now to the introduction. The evapotranspiration has reduced due to removal of vegetation and replacement with impervious materials. Mention presenting about drastic changes over the nature of air surface and atmospheric parameters of the environment. Next slide. Next slide. Now, research questions. Does moisture increase surface temperature? 1. 2. Does surface temperature have corresponding influence on air temperature increase? 3. Does surface temperature have corresponding influence on soil temperature at depth of space? Next slide. Surface temperature was measured with a handheld infrared thermometer. We also estimated the cloud conditions, the cloud size, and the cloud cover with the Globe Cloud Chart and the Globe Observation application on our phone. We used the meta to measure the depth of the soil at 10 centimeters. We also established 3 observational sites within the Sepulchre Unit Secondary School compound, and these are the school field, the school farm, and the cement floor. The soil temperature was measured with a 4-in-1 soil tester, and our air temperature was measured with an hygrometer. The GPS coordinates of the Akure site were also recorded with an extra 10 GPS device. The 3 observational sites that we established had a dimension of 30 by 30 meters. And in each site, there were 9 individual observational spots, which were randomly selected. And each observational spot were at least 5 meters apart. Data collection. Our data that were obtained from the 3 sites were processed by means of use the mean and the ANOVA, that's analysis of variance. Next slide. Next slide, please. The GPS coordinates for the 3 observational sites, that is the school field, the school farm, and the cement floor, are shown in the slide. Table 1, as we're saying here, is a sample of one of the 9 observational spots in each observational site. We also obtained similar values in other 9 spots in other observational sites. Figure 1 is a sample of the main surface air and soil temperature in the school field observational site. As you can see, in week 1, the trend of the surface air and soil temperature had a low decrease, while in week 3 and week 4, there was a slight decrease in the surface air and soil temperature. Now, in week 5, 6, in week 5, 6, and 7, in week 5, 6, 7, 8, there is a drastic decrease in the surface air and soil temperature. While in week 8, 9, and 10, there is a fast increase in the surface soil and the surface air and soil temperature. Next slide. These results shown in the slide are the abnormal results of the school field and the school farm. For the surface temperature, air temperature, and soil temperature, we recorded significant values from 0.000, 0.000, and 0.000. Here, significant values less than 0.05 indicate that the values are significant across the body area. We also obtained similar values in the school field, school farm, and the cement floor. But the cement floor is not shown here in the slide. Next slide. Next slide.
Discussion. Figure 1 shows the increase in surface temperature and air temperature with increase in soil temperature after week 14. This pattern is observed for all the graph plotted. Table 2 and 3 show the annual result from the school field and school farm respectively. The value of the X statistic for the surface temperature, air temperature, and soil temperature at a depth of 10 cm at cohabitability P less than 0.5 and 5% error are shown below. This indicates that the surface temperature, air temperature, and soil temperature at a depth of 10 cm over the school field, the school farm, are significantly across the study area. This implies that the significance of one of the corresponding significance of the other over the area of investigation. The same trend is illustrated over the simulated flow. And we say that any value that is less than 0.05, that they are significantly dependent. And from our observation, we are able to know that the surface temperature, air temperature, and air temperature across the three observation sites are significantly dependent, because when we put our value is equal to less than 0.5 or 0.05. Conclusion: the study has revealed that the rate of urbanization is high as across, and it consequently impacts the study area over the period of investigation, and that the significant influence of urbanization across the study site in the surface temperature, air temperature, and air and soil temperature. For the future study, we recommend the federal government to lay some for future study on the effect of urbanization rate, that there should be more climatic factors that will be added so that there will be broad-based understanding in surface temperature. Next slide. Next slide. These are the globe. Okay, we are staying from secondary secondary school across Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Great job. I'm going to get to the right slide before I project again. And our next presenter is from the US. Let me share my screen. All right, I'm going to hand it over to you, Joseph.
Hello, my name is Joseph. I'm from the United States, and today I'm going to present about the effects of COVID-19 on the air quality. Next slide, please. So for my GLOBE project, I decided to research if the lockdown restrictions caused by COVID-19 have affected air pollution. My hypothesis was that the pandemic actually improved air quality. And this is because the restrictions caused by the pandemic across the globe are reducing the amount of transportation that is used. And since transportation is a major factor of air pollution, since it produces so many greenhouse gases, now that less people are using it due to the quarantine, my hypothesis is that it will cause very little air pollution. And scientists around the world have done research on the same topic, and their data agrees with my hypothesis. But since none of the research has been done specifically in my hometown of Astoria, New York, I decided to investigate the air quality change in Astoria. Next slide, please. So, and in my experiment, I used the globe aerosols protocol, and I went outside around the porch, to my porch around 11 each day, and I'd try to make sure there are no clouds covering the sun without looking directly at it, and that way I wouldn't damage my eyes. And if the sun was unobstructed, I would use the sun photometer that I had to measure the aerosol optical thickness, otherwise known as AOT. AOT is a measurement of how much light the aerosols prevent from traveling through the atmosphere. And aerosols are tiny little particles in the atmosphere that can come from different sources like pollution. And for my control group, I used measurements I measured in January of 2020, which was before the pandemic. And my control variables were the time and location of the measurement, since they were the same for every measurement. And the independent and dependent variables were the date and AOT values respectively. Next slide, please. And so as you can see here, I took measurements before the pandemic, which is on the left, and during the pandemic, which is on the right. And you can see since I couldn't get a haircut due to the pandemic, my hair is much longer on the right. Next slide, please. So aerosol data is split into readings of red, green, and blue wavelengths of light, which are represented by the red, green, and blue bars that are on the graph. And the lower the AOT is, the higher the air quality. And I couldn't collect much data because there are clouds in the way, but the graph shows the data that I was able to collect, and the air quality got significantly better compared to before the pandemic. And so the left bars are from January 20th, 2020, and the bars on the right are on January 17th, January 18th, and January 23rd. And there aren't many data points because, like I said, there were clouds covering the sun a lot of the time. And also I had school, so it was hard for me to be able to take measurements. But to ensure quality data, each day had at least 3 trials, although most of them had more, and they were all taken at the same time. Next slide, please. So after conducting the experiment, it seems that the COVID-19 lockdown did decrease pollution by a significant amount, proving my hypothesis. And the median AOT that I measured from before the pandemic was around 0.1 for all of the wavelengths, but the median AOT from during the pandemic read just around 0.09 for blue, 0.07 for green, and 0.06 for red. And this makes the median during the pandemic just around 74% of pollution found from before the pandemic. And one problem that came up during my experiment was, like I said, so many days were cloudy, and I would just to try to take measurements at several times a day, that way I could go get more measurements that weren't cloudy. And I learned that surprisingly, something even as terrible as a pandemic can have some good secondary effects, like the air pollution being significantly decreased. Next slide, please. And if I were to follow up on this experiment, I'd make sure to collect much more data and with different conditions. And I would also test other locations like the airport to see how they're affected differently, since the airplanes would cause a lot more air pollution. And additionally, I'd look at data after the pandemic is over to determine how long lasting these effects were. Next slide, please. And for acknowledgements, I'd like to thank Dr. Margaret Pippin, who's an atmospheric scientist at NASA Langley Research Center, who taught me how to measure AOT and who let me borrow one of her photometers. Thank you.
Thanks, Joseph. Great job. Next up, we've got our students from Peru. And a reminder, you've got 7 minutes.
Okay. Buenos días a todos. Nosotras somos Dasna Lisbeth Yance, estudiante de Ingeniería Meteorológica, y Andrea Soto Martínez, estudiante de Ingeniería Pesquera, ambas de la Universidad Nacional Agraria de Molina en Lima, Perú. Nosotros trataremos el tema titulado Hábitat potencial de la tortuga careta careta en el mundo y su relación con las escuelas CLAP. Nuestra inspiración. Nosotros tuvimos una clase con los alumnos de la profesora de Gozo en Malta. Y bueno, pues ellos estuvieron investigando la tortuga, la encontraron en la playa y ahí fue donde surgió la inspiración. Conociendo un poco más de esta tortuga, es llamada en Chile, por ejemplo, tortuga amarilla por las manchas que presenta en su cuerpo, o también llamada tortuga cabezona, como se le conoce en Perú, ya que llega a medir aproximadamente 25 centímetros, llegando a pesar 150 kilogramos. En la anidación, como dijimos, lo más importante serán la ubicación, la cantidad de arena, la temperatura y el periodo de incubación. Cuando hicimos esta investigación nos surgieron preguntas. La primera fue, ¿cuál es la variable bioclimática que más influye en la distribución de tortugas? ¿Y será el Perú un buen lugar para la anidación de tortugas de la especie careta careta? Metodología. Lo que hicimos fue primero es revisar la información, luego hicimos un modelo del hábitat, seleccionamos las variables bioclimáticas importantes, identificamos los lugares para encontrar la tortuga, luego con la aplicación GLOVE identificamos varias escuelas y por último analizamos patrones de las variables bioclimáticas de las escuelas que seleccionamos con GLOVE. Bien, para hacer todo esto utilizamos varias aplicaciones. Primero fue WorkClim, que es para buscar las variables bioclimáticas más importantes. Luego fue el GBIF, que nos muestra la ubicación de la especie de tortuga careta careta. Y luego fue el QGIS, que nos presentará un mapa. Y para anexar las tres aplicaciones utilizamos el MarkSen. Resultados. Bien. Como dijimos, el MarkSen va a servir como un nexo de todo y al utilizar esta aplicación nos mostrará el siguiente mapa que va de distintas tonalidades, desde el azul siendo la mínima probabilidad hasta el rojo siendo la máxima probabilidad de encontrar la especie careta careta. Y los puntos amarillos van a ser las escuelas GLOVE que seleccionamos, que están ubicadas entre los menos 50 y 150 metros sobre el nivel del mar con los datos de la temperatura. Bien, la siguiente es una gráfica donde nos presenta las distintas variables bioclimáticas que extraímos. En este caso nos dio como resultado Bio6 y Bio4, ambas referentes a la temperatura, como las variables más importantes en nuestro trabajo. Y bueno, también hay otras variables, pero eso ya lo pueden ver en el informe que está colgado en la página de GLOVE. Bien, lo siguiente que voy a explicar van a ser cuadros sobre las distintas variaciones de las temperaturas. En este caso es en Florida, con temperaturas mínimas mensuales superiores de 15 a 25 grados centígrados. Fueron exactamente de 3 escuelas. ¿Por qué? Porque fue las escuelas donde hay mayor probabilidad de encontrar la especie careta careta. El siguiente gráfico es de Europa, con temperaturas mínimas mensuales de 15 a 20 grados centígrados. Y bueno, si hacemos una comparación con las dos, podemos ver que Europa presenta mayor cantidad de datos, y esto se debe a que tiene una mayor frecuencia en su toma de datos.
La temperatura es un factor demasiado importante para las tortugas marinas, ya que va a determinar el sexo de la tortuga. Por ejemplo, si las temperaturas son superiores a 29 grados centígrados, la tortuga va a ser hembra. Ahora quiero dar una mayor énfasis en el calentamiento global. Como todos sabemos, el calentamiento global implica un aumento de la temperatura. Si sucede esto, habría más tortugas hembras y habría un desbalance entre la relación de sexos de las tortugas. En consecuencia, habría menos probabilidades de reproducción y esto podría ser una futura causa de extinción para las tortugas careta careta. Nuestro trabajo permitió, gracias al análisis de las escuelas GLOVE, reconocer que la variación mensual de promedio de la temperatura mínima es sumamente importante para las tortugas careta careta, y estas van a preferir temperaturas mínimas mayores a 15 grados centígrados en los meses de verano. Las respuestas. La variable más importante es la temperatura mínima mensual, debiendo ser esta mayor a 15 grados centígrados en los meses de verano. Acerca si el Perú es un buen lugar para la anidación de las tortugas careta careta, a pesar de que hay presencia de estas tortugas en el Perú, según nuestro modelo no se tienen los datos suficientes para determinar si este es un buen lugar para la anidación. A este hecho hay que sumarle la gran influencia humana que va a afectar a las tortugas, como la urbanización y la contaminación lumínica. Este es un ejemplo de la urbanización de playas. La Costa Verde. Acá se pueden apreciar dos fotografías tomadas en distintos años. En la primera fotografía, que es tomada en 1960, en el supuesto caso de que la tortuga pusiera ahí su nido, sí se podría, porque no hay mucha presencia de depredadores y cumple con todas las condiciones necesarias para una buena anidación. Pero si la tortuga quisiera dejar su nido actualmente no se podría, porque no cumpliría con todas las condiciones. Contaminación lumínica. Un dato curioso acerca de la anidación es que una vez que la madre deja el nido con los huevos, nunca más regresa. Entonces, ¿cómo es que las crías regresan a su hogar? ¿Cómo regresan al mar? Esto se debe a la luna, que les sirve como una especie de GPS para que ellos puedan regresar. Pero con la contaminación lumínica, como se podrá ver en la foto, al ver demasiadas luces artificiales prendidas, las tortugas se confunden y en muchos casos acaban en la carretera siendo atropelladas en el proceso. El Perú es un país sumamente diverso. En realidad, de las 7 especies de tortugas marinas que existen alrededor del mundo, el Perú cuenta con 5 de ellas. Sin embargo, estas 5 especies se encuentran en peligro de extinción. Es por ello que se hace un llamado de reflexión a todas las personas para que podamos ver cómo las excepciones pueden tener un efecto negativo en esta especie. Eso sería todo. Muchas gracias.
Gracias. Great job. Next up, we've got students from Crestwood High School in Michigan, USA.
Good morning. Our research takes place on the Middle Branch of the Rouge River floodplain in Dearborn Heights, Michigan, inside of Edwards Hines Drive. All 3 researchers were members of Crestwood's cross-country team and throughout high school had daily practices there. The location of the 4 trees examined are actually on a common route all cross-country runners take for their daily practices, which makes this location even more personal for us as we've run near these trees throughout the last 4 years of high school. We live in Michigan, the Great Lakes state, one of the 50 states that make up the US. Next slide, please. Moving on to who we are, the top left is Zana, and below is myself, Sana, and lastly to the right is Iridal. Next slide, please. We're each recent graduates of Crestwood High School and will each be heading off to college at the end of summer. While our data supports how important trees really are, we've all experienced their positive effects, specifically with temperature, when running cross-country and track. We often ran in temperatures over 90 degrees Fahrenheit. When we ran through open fields, having trees in the middle of our course was a great way to cool down or to catch our breath after a long run. Zaina and Iridal have both been active in the GLOBE program since 2018. This was Sana's first year doing GLOBE research. As a close friend and teammate, Sana continuously heard Zaina and I speaking about our GLOBE investigations and was happy to join us during our last year of high school. Since all 3 of us are extremely acquainted with Hines Drive, we decided to make it all the more personal by giving the trees their own names. And due to the fact, by the time that we began collecting data, the leaves had fallen, so it became hard to identify the species until spring. So as unconventional as it may seem, we named the largest one Max, the one nearest to the bridge named Bridget, the one nearest to the picnic tables named Tucker, and the smallest named Stumpy. For us anyways, the simple act of giving our research trees names helped create a new level of understanding and companionship between our studies and the environment itself. By the way, we did later discover that the 3 trees were all Eastern cottonwoods, Populus deltoides, and little Stumpy had turned out to be a sugar maple, an Acer sacrum.
Seasonal flooding is an expected occurrence among many river systems in Michigan. This is why many great cultures established agriculture take advantage of the rich sediments that get deposited. Unfortunately, the majority of our Rouge River watershed has been paved over or built up with housing industry that is now impermeable to water. Now, with even just small downpours, the river overflows its banks and forces the closure of roads that parallel the river for many miles. In addition, the fast-moving water scours the sides of the river channel, causing large trees that line the river to collapse into the river, creating log jams. Whenever the river loses a large canopy tree, the river loses important shading and water temperatures increase. Unfortunately, increased water temperatures lead to lower amounts of dissolved oxygen being held in the water, which affects fish and other aquatic organisms that depend on high levels of dissolved oxygen. To the right is summer flooding that took place in summer 2020 along with the road that parallels the middle branch of the Rouge River is shown. And this is near the location where soil samples and the tree observations were made.
Next slide, please. Next slide, please. We developed several null hypotheses from our initial research questions because it is often easier in science to disprove one's hypothesis than to accept it. A null hypothesis is often the opposite of what we might expect when analyzing our data. Our null hypotheses include: 1, large tree canopy cover does not reduce air temperatures when being compared to under the canopy and the control, which is outside the canopy. Proximity to tree location has no correlation in decreasing or increasing pH levels due to leaching and weathering. And lastly, particle density does not vary along floodplain gradients.
In order to collect our data, next please. In order to collect our data, Kenson Industries 50-foot tape was used to measure 15.37 meters from the base of the tree. So the kilometer and the Globe Observer app were used to collect tree heights, and the kilometer and the Globe Observer tree app were both used to receive the most accurate height measurements. The tree heights were taken by all 3 members for a total of 3 times. And then a densitometer was used in order to collect canopy data to view the effects it might have on the environment around the tree. 2 Pascal wireless weather devices were used to collect the variety of atmospheric data, both under the canopy and outside the canopy of each tree selected for this investigation. 2 trees were chosen because of their proximity to the riverbank, and 2 additional trees were chosen that were close to the river, but in the portion of the floodplain that frequently indulged by water during flooding.
Next slide, please. Now, looking at table 1, our data indicates that a large and thick canopy is effective in reducing surface and air temperatures when compared to air temperatures taken outside of the canopy. A visualization of this heat reduction is quite noticeable on the associated graph. Tree 4, which is also Bridget, had the largest percent of canopy cover of 83.5%, while also having the largest difference in temperatures of canopy versus control, with a difference of approximately 7.34 degrees Celsius. Moving on to table 2, due to the floodwater in 821, examining tree 4, again being Bridget, being the tree with the closest proximity to the Rouge River and the lowest elevation. The pH did read as 6.2, which may have been lowered due to potentially acidifying effects of the floodwaters. However, on 825, the pH read as 7.2 due to a possible decrease in flooding. Any correlations are speculative and would require further study. Moving on to table 3, similar to the figure before, as this is the second trial of table 2, most of the pH readings of other soils stayed consistent compared to trial number 1. Therefore, establishing a correlation between soil pH and the effects of flooding from our data is inconclusive at best. With the exception of the day 825, although the soil was collected and tested from the data set, the pH readings are significantly different, and this could be due to a procedural error. Moving on to table 4, tree 3 has the lowest particle density, with the exception of 820, noted that it was a rainy day. The other trees present an average particle density, which may likely correlate with moderate soil porosity and soil compaction. However, tree 3 having unusually low particle density alters the soil, which may cause a decrease in porosity and compaction. Data table 4 shows that the particle density does not appear to be correlated with the atmospheric parameters we measured. Table 5 has the same exact results as table 4 and therefore are deemed conclusive.
Next slide, please. COVID restrictions really complicated our ability to complete this research. We couldn't even meet as a group last summer until our state's COVID restrictions allowed for sports and other school activities to resume with careful masking and distancing guidelines. Ideally, it would have been significant to do a month analysis rather than a week. But this was also a limitation due to COVID-19 restrictions. Adding as well to the virtual learning and unpredictable availability of in-person in our school's labs made it very difficult to analyze our soil samples. At one point, we had to let our samples sit for 3 months before we could actually get back in the lab and analyze our samples. Unfortunately, due to this, we had to cut down our trials from 3 to 2. Due to that time difference between soil sample collection and analysis created a possible significant difference in the accuracy of our final results.
After analyzing our data, next slide, please. After collecting our data, we rejected our first null hypothesis, as our data suggested that the large tree canopy does in fact reduce air temperatures when compared to areas outside the canopy. Data to support or reject our other 2 null hypotheses was insufficient to make any significant conclusions. The second and third null hypotheses were accepted, meaning that no significant correlation was found between soil values and the atmospheric parameters measured.
Next slide, please. To conclude, we have decided that trees are valuable and an integral parts of any river floodplain. Although our research was limited in its extent, we did find a significant relationship between tree canopies and the ability of trees to both cool land surfaces and the air around them. Relationships between floodplain soils and the atmospheric parameters would require much more longitudinal research. Next slide, please. To finally wrap up, we have decided to share our future research needs. To begin, the Rouge River and its associated floodplains are rich with potential topics for future research. We hope that our research and that many other students in the future can document the important roles that trees have on floodplains and what they play in not only shading the river, but also helping to remove water after storm events through evapotranspiration. Future studies of soils could provide much more needed information on the factors that affect how quickly water can drain back into the ground after flooding events. Next slide, please. Thank you for having us present.
Thank you so much. Great job. So now we're going to open it up for some questions. And these are questions for our students who presented from Nigeria, Peru, our students who just presented from Michigan, and Joseph from New York.
Okay, thank you, Amy. We actually have quite a few questions. A lot of people are very interested in these projects. So the first question is for our friends from Nigeria. And the question is, the person writes, I'm very impressed with your statistical analysis and study. If you're trying to lower temperatures near your school, what would you recommend?
We will recommend we should we would recommend that the rate of urbanization should be reduced.
Can you repeat your answer, please?
We will recommend that the rate of urbanization should be reduced.
Thank you very much. Our next question is for Joseph. Joseph, the person writes, you did a great job. I like how you indicated what you would want to investigate in the future. Do you have any plans to compare the readings after the pandemic?
Yeah. Since the months of the year can also vary how many aerosols are there, I think that if I was going to measure after the pandemic, I would have to measure it in January again with the sum of 2022, because hopefully the restrictions won't come back because they're easing up in my area. And yeah, so if I could then do further research in January of next January.
Gotcha. And to follow up to that question would be, now that, as we talked about, things kind of opening up a bit, being a bit more manageable in certain parts of the world, what are your thoughts on aerosols after the pandemic? Are they going to go back to pre-pandemic measurements? Or do you think, with things a lot of companies starting to do telework, whether aerosols will start to get better?
Well, I do hope that the effects of the pandemic lowering air quality will last for a long time. But I think at some point it will unfortunately go back to the levels of before the pandemic. But that's a good point, that maybe that companies are trying to become more green. Maybe they won't, and maybe we'll have less polluted air.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you very much. And our next question is for our students in Peru. I'm going to attempt to ask it in Spanish, but if you can please answer in English. So para los estudiantes en Perú, trabajan en forma colaborativa con los estudiantes de Malta y cómo. So the question in English is, did you work with students in Malta in a very collaborative way, and how?
The answer is yes. We have a class with students in Malta, and also the professor Ramona Marciega provide us their information, all the data that they took.
Thank you. Yes, Ramona is great to work with. We have another question for our students in Michigan. So for those students, what are your thoughts on what else you could have measured related to runoff with the GLOBE protocols?
Well, related to GLOBE protocols, we kind of discovered that there was a test for soil porosity and soil compaction a little late. So by the time that we had discovered that protocol, because of the COVID restrictions and not being able to get in the lab for 3 months, we were unable to fully conclude any tests that included anything to do with compaction and porosity. So if adding that to a future research project, that would be extremely helpful in determining whether impermeable surfaces affect the porosity and the compaction of the soil, including anything to do with leaching and weathering.
Gotcha, great. Okay, we have another question for our students in Peru. Once again, I will go ahead and butcher my Spanish, but I will repeat it in English. So the question is, durante el experimento, pudieron observar en vida real los tortugas. So what I attempted to say is, during the experiment, did you observe any real life turtles?
No, we won't because of the quarantine.
Oh, I see. And one other question for Peru, your student Hannah. Hannah, did you see what was your experience with turtles in Malta? Did you, your professor asked me to ask you that question.
The experience was amazing. It was very magical because in Malta, it's very rare that we have a turtle nest. The investigation started in May and in July.
So it started in May until July? That is amazing. You're very fortunate to be able to see turtles like that. That's awesome. We have one more question for our students in Michigan. Actually, it's not a question, it's more of a comment. So the person says, I love the fact that you name the trees. What a great way to make your project fun. So congratulations to kind of personalize your research experience there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have time for one more question, Amy?
Yes, we can do one more.
Okay. I'm going to actually ask my colleague Mindy if she can go ahead and translate this one for me, or actually just ask the question. So Mindy, if you want to unmute and ask this question for us.
Sure. For Peru, buenísima presentación. Ustedes son casi científicos profesionales. ¿Hay solamente ciertas playas en donde anidan las tortugas? ¿Y por qué? So in English, are there only certain beaches where turtles nest? And why is that, do you think? Or do you know?
Bueno, en el caso de Perú, como mencioné, no hay suficientes datos para determinar si es un buen lugar para la anidación, pero los factores que influyen demasiado para que las tortugas dejen su nido es la ubicación de la playa, la cantidad de arena y la temperatura, el cual es el factor más importante de todos.
We have, let's see, one more question. Are there only certain beaches where turtles nest and why? Oh, wait, is that what you just asked? I'm sorry, that's what you just asked, didn't you?
No problem.
Okay, so I think that's all the questions we have, Amy. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to you.
All right, great, thank you. Next up, we've got our students who come from Puerto Rico.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, hello, I am Yariani Rivera. I am with Yeriel Allende, and we will be presenting our investigation of Puerto Rico communities focused on mosquito habitats and awareness. You can go to the massive spread that mosquitoes are having in Puerto Rico is why we investigated in detail about Puerto Rico's community focus on mosquito habitats and awareness, their growth process, where to find them, how to identify breeders, among others, are important factors Puerto Ricans should be aware of. From June 10th of 2020 to July 26, 2020, we used the following 4 methods in this experiment: the mosquito larvae trap method, the Globe Observer app method, the Colored Earth online method, and the Google Forms online survey method. A total of 219 residents of Puerto Rico answered the survey during July 22 to July 2025. Throughout the experiments, mosquito habitats were found of the mosquito species Aedes aegypti and Culex. Some imposters, such as ants, fly ants, lizards, and midge larvae, were found. We considered that one of the factors that attracted mosquitoes was the CO2. Also, Puerto Ricans found water sources that can be invaded by mosquitoes. It is suggested that this research be carried out on the island. Furthermore, the youthful generation must comprehend the need of taking responsibility for our environment and health. You can go next.
All right, so our research question is how mosquito habitats influence the massive spread of mosquito. So if the climate of Puerto Rico is warm, humid tropical climate with well-distributed rainfall throughout the year, mosquitoes will be captured and observed in the larvae mosquito traps. In addition, since Puerto Rico is an island with high mosquito increases, the majority of Puerto Ricans will have the necessary knowledge and awareness about mosquitoes. You can go next slide. All right, so the materials and methods that we use. The first one that we're going to talk about is the mosquito larvae trap method. So the study was conducted in 2 separate land sites located in Manatí and Vega Baja, both towns of Puerto Rico. So the first experiment was outside in the garage and balcony. We have 5 mosquito larvae traps recreated with different baits for each land site. Manatí land sites had 2 cough baits. Measured are the water, sugar, grass, rice starch, and the seeds of the use of the passion fruit. Passion fruit. Experiment number 2 was in the Vega Baja land sites. Baits before measure are 1 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 1 gram of yeast, and water. The experiment number 2 consisted in adding 1 trap with a different design in both land sites that only had a water exchanging the seed with passion fruit trap for 1 of brown sugar with yeast. And the third experiment consists on using the 10-liter plastic paint container with plain water in the garden. So we just leave that play container on the outside and see what's going to happen. The other method was the collect earth online method. So pretty much that is we use it to locate and analyze the land of Manatí and Vega Baja, the both towns of Puerto Rico. So that's pretty much the use of the collect earth online method. And the globe observer method. So we use the globe mosquito habitat mapper, was used to locate mosquito habitats, observe and identify mosquito larvae, and reduce the potential threat of mosquito-borne disease. And this section globe land cover. It's an app-based tool used to document what is on the land. To start the observation, it is necessary to enter the local date, time, and location of the observation. And also the Google Forms online survey that we used it to questionnaire some Puerto Rican citizens' knowledge, attitudes, and practices concerning the mosquito and develop and understanding the status of Puerto Rican communities awareness. The Google form was a 30 multiple selection question with 18 multiple choices and 12 qualitative questions.
The results. The results of Collect Earth Online. In the first picture, you can see the Manatí land site with trees, grass, buildings, and impervious surface. And on the second photo is the Vega Baja land site with trees, grass, buildings, and impervious surface. But as you can see, in Vega Baja, there are more trees than in Manatí, and more buildings in Manatí than in Vega Baja. You can go next. These are the table of results of the mosquito larvae trap. This is experiment 1 by Yarian Rivera. It consisted in measuring the temperatures, monthly precipitation, the location, the mosquito egg, pupa, larvae presence, if there were any imposters, and the bait type. These are the bait types of the water, rice starch, grass, the sugar, seed, and use of the passion fruit. In week 1 and week 2, there were no mosquito observed, but there were imposters. You can go to the next slide. Here are the pictures of the imposters in the experiment 1. You can see the lizards, the flies, the ant, the fly ants, and you can go to the next slide. In experiment 1 by Yariel, this consisted in the brown sugar, yeast, and water. There were no mosquitoes, but there were imposters in week 2. You can go in the next slide. Mostly there were ants. Here is a picture of the ant. In the experiment 2 by Yarianis, here is the 10-liter plastic container. In week 3, we did saw imposters, no mosquitoes, but in week 4, we saw mosquitoes, Aedes aegypti, inside the house. Next slide, please. These are the imposters that were caught and the mosquitoes. This is the Aedes aegypti mosquitoes in different stages. Okay. This is experiment 2 by Yariel. We can see in the week 3, there were no imposters and no mosquitoes observed, but in week 4, we can observe Aedes aegypti in the plastic container that was in the patio, and such imposters as ants. Here are the mosquitoes in the pupa phase and larvae. Here is the experiment 3 by Yarianis. We can not observe any mosquitoes in week 5, but in week 6, we found Aedes aegypti and we found an imposter that was the midge larvae in the 10-liter plastic paint container. That it was outside the garden. Here are the imposters. Midge larvae tend to imitate the mosquitoes. So that was such an interesting thing for us to observe. And here are the mosquitoes, the Aedes aegypti. In the experiment 3 by Yariel, we didn't find any mosquitoes on week 5, but in week 6, we found Aedes aegypti and a new type of mosquito that we found that was the Culex mosquito in the 10-liter plastic container. These are the imposters, the midge larvae, and the mosquitoes, the Culex. In the table of results of the GLOW Observer app, we divided it by 2, the land cover. We divided the location and MUC description. And in the mosquito habitat mapper, we measured the mosquito habitat where we find the water source, the mosquito egg pupa larvae presence, and the quantity of mosquito that in Yarianis was 100 mosquito and in Yariel 147 mosquitoes, and the type of mosquito. Only in Yarianis Aedes aegypti and in Yariel Aedes aegypti and Culex. These are the results of the Google Forms online survey. Here you can see the graph 1 with the demographic data. The graph 2 of the mosquito knowledge. We can find that people have a basic knowledge about mosquitoes, such as like the correct stages of the mosquito cycle or how many days it takes for the mosquito to fully develop. Here are the graph 3 for community awareness. I'm sorry?
I'll kind of wrap it up soon.
Yeah. Here, the graphic 3 community awareness regarding mosquito and mosquito-borne diseases. Next. The graph 4, know about your water surroundings. The graph 5, community input around mosquito control activities with the pesticide use. Graph 6, community needs and requirements regarding communication.
All right, so the conclusion will be, by using different methods to investigate mosquito larvae habitats, we found a positive result from the mosquito larvae traps. The temperature, CO2 concentration, and precipitation are very important factors. The Yarianis investigation place has more houses around that include more people that produce CO2, one factor the mosquito biter are attracted to. Yariel has more green places, These are perfect for mosquitoes to breed their larvae safely with no human around to interrupt their progress. We obtain a correct hypothesis and a survey that we or anybody or anyone can use for future research. In addition, we now have that knowledge about Puerto Ricans knowing and having awareness of mosquito. In Vega Baja traps, we are capturing more mosquito. Experiment 1 in both places did not capture any mosquitoes. Experiment 2 in both places only captured Aedes aegypti, and experiment 3 captured Aedes aegypti in both places and collects on Yaria's 5.25 liter container. In total, 100 mosquitoes were captured by Yarianis and 127 by Yaria. Aedes aegypti larvae and poop were concentrated in artificial containers experiments during the last 3 weeks. The highlights of potentially utility of tools like the Global Server app that have been developed to identify the mosquitoes. The larvae found more in a gliding motion in the water.
Thank you. We wanna thank our mentors, Cassie Sophie, Rusty Lowe, and Peter Nelson for giving us this opportunity. Thank you for your attention.
Great job. Thanks so much. Next up, we've got a presentation we've got a video we're going to play from our students from Argentina.
Hola, buenas tardes. Somos la Escuela 1345 Nuestra Señora del Carmen de Pujato, provincia de Santa Fe, Argentina. Desde 2004 la escuela participa en el programa GLOB y se han realizado muchos proyectos aquí. Durante el año 2020, en el taller de ciencias, los niños de cuarto grado junto a la señora Claudia Romagnoli hicimos el trabajo, los cambios que producen las estaciones en árboles y arbustos de Pujato, Argentina, que estamos presentando aquí. Todas las actividades las hicimos de manera virtual, debido a la pandemia COVID-19.
Estudiamos de 6 árboles y un arbusto. Definimos cada sitio de observación, lo ubicamos sobre el mapa de Pujato, hicimos experimentos y sacamos muchas fotos durante las estaciones del año. Subimos toda la información a la página del programa GLOB.
Todo el estudio lo hicimos para ver los cambios del aspecto de los árboles y arbustos de Pujato, Argentina, a lo largo de las estaciones durante el año 2020. Fue muy interesante tener nuestro propio sitio, así después compararlos con los de nuestros compañeros. Este año 2021, con el profesor Marco Gracelli, seguimos trabajando con los árboles y arbustos de Pujato y ya contamos con 21 sitios de estudio gracias a más compañeros que se sumaron al proyecto. Lo importante es que con este trabajo conocemos más sobre las plantas de Pujato y observamos con otros ojos más especialistas los cambios que producen en otoño, invierno, primavera y verano. Hacer ciencia en la escuela a través del programa GLOB nos ha enriquecido en conocimientos y habilidades científicas.
Somos los estudiantes de la escuela primaria 1345 de Pujato, Argentina. En el año 2020, cuando estábamos en cuarto grado, se nos ocurrió realizar un proyecto. El patio de nuestra escuela tiene mucho césped y muchos árboles y arbustos. Y entonces se nos ocurrió realizar un proyecto con GLOB.
Pujato es un pequeño pueblo de la provincia de Santa Fe, con la mayoría de las casas de un piso, con árboles, arbustos, en plazas, veredas y patio. Las estaciones están bien diferenciadas: verano, otoño, invierno y primavera.
Luego de las 2 primeras clases del año en el taller, nos sorprendió la pandemia COVID-19 y tuvimos que quedarnos en casa. Igualmente seguimos trabajando en una nueva forma, la virtualidad. Cada uno eligió un arbusto, un árbol en su patio, en su vereda o en algún lugar que le quedara próximo para seguir estudiando. La pregunta de investigación que tratamos de responder es: ¿cómo modifican su aspecto los árboles y arbustos de Pujato, Argentina, a lo largo de las estaciones durante el año 2020?
El objetivo general de la investigación fue observar y describir el aspecto de algunos árboles y arbustos de Pujato a lo largo de las estaciones del año 2020, para señalar posibles modificaciones que en ellos producen las variaciones climáticas. La señora Claudia nos pidió que le saquemos fotos desde nuestro hogar a un árbol o algún arbusto. Le pusimos un nombre científico y lo compartimos con todos nuestros compañeros. Anotamos cada una de las direcciones y marcamos en un plano de Pujato. Con ese dato la señora buscó la altitud y longitud. Después definió en el programa de la página Globe. Allí registramos todo lo que fuimos tomando. Aprendimos a clasificar las especies en nativas o exóticas. Cada uno fue anotando cómo veía la planta, si tenía hojas y de qué color las tenía según la carta de colores Globe. Cómo estaba la corteza, si había flores, frutos. Lo acompañábamos con fotografías. Esto nos permitió dar las características para cada una de las estaciones del año. Hicimos algunos experimentos, por ejemplo, pudimos encontrar los pigmentos que se encuentran en la hoja verde, una cromatografía de la clorofila. También probamos con la hoja roja, amarilla y seca, vimos que el verde en esta última había desaparecido. También hicimos lectura del libro para nuestra edad, por ejemplo, Ciencia para pasar el otoño, Ciencia para pasar la primavera, de Valeria Slete. Calificamos las plantas de cada sitio según tengan hojas perennes o caducifolias. Vimos que las palmeras, el ligustro y los naranjos eran perennes, porque sus hojas no se cayeron. Todos los demás eran caducifolios, porque se le caían las hojas. El 29 de agosto recordamos el Día del Árbol, enviamos nuestras fotografías con adornos y carteles para celebrar su día. Iniciamos los protocolos de biometría de globo. Medimos la circunferencia de cada árbol. Calculamos la altura usando el clinómetro. Finalmente, comparamos la fotografía de cada sitio. Como conclusiones, podemos decir que todas las actividades que hicimos tuvieron como objetivo observar y describir el aspecto de estos árboles y arbustos de Pujato a lo largo de las estaciones del año 2020 y dar respuesta a la pregunta sobre cómo cambia el aspecto de estos árboles y arbustos. Por lo tanto, para dar respuesta necesitamos considerar todas las actividades que hicimos a lo largo de las estaciones.
Lo que más nos interesó fue ser guardianes de un árbol o arbusto y compartir entre todos la responsabilidad de realizar esta investigación. Mientras hicimos el trabajo, logramos más conocimientos científicos sobre el ambiente que nos rodea y aprender más sobre las plantas de Pujato y cómo cambian durante las estaciones del año. Este interés se ha manifestado en todos y cada uno de los integrantes de este proyecto y a su vez se ha proyectado entre familiares y amigos, quienes colaboraron durante el proceso investigativo.
Como cierre, leeremos parte de las conclusiones del informe. Finalmente, se puede decir que la Tierra es un sistema dinámico donde los cambios ambientales han sido parte de su evolución. En este caso, los efectos que producen las estaciones del año sobre los árboles y arbustos tienen características globales, dado que todo el sistema Tierra está interconectado.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias.
Gracias. That was great. Really wonderful video. I may have shared the wrong link. Oh, sorry, stumbling over my word. But I will be sure to include the right link in when we upload the slides. But thank you, students. That was a wonderful video. Next up, I'm going to share my screen here. We've got a presentation from our students from Uruguay.
Next, please. Hola, hoy con mi compañero venimos a representación de nuestra escuela. Este proyecto se inició en la Escuela Rural número 88 Acknowledgement. Está ubicado en la zona rural de las Violetas, Canelones, Uruguay. El sitio de estudio forma parte de casi más de media hectárea y está cubierta por gramíneas. El título de nuestro proyecto es Efectos de electricidad solar en el comportamiento de especies de fauna y hormigas en el periodo escolar. Next, please. Next, please. Nuestra pregunta de investigación es ¿cómo se comportan las aves y hormigas durante el eclipse del 14 de diciembre de 2020 en el periodo de la Escuela Rural número 88? Nuestra hipótesis es que durante el punto máximo del eclipse, los seres observados cambiarán su comportamiento reaccionando como si fuese el atardecer. Next, please. ¿Sabes qué ocurre durante un eclipse solar? Bueno, lo que puede ocurrir es que las variables ambientales cambien, o sea que puede aumentar y descender la temperatura al igual que la velocidad del viento. Está comprobado que los animales cambian sus hábitos cuando llega al punto máximo del eclipse porque piensan que es de tarde. El viento del eclipse ocurre cuando el sol desaparece detrás de la luna, haciendo que el suelo se enfríe igual que en el atardecer. Next, please.
El eclipse comenzó el 14 de diciembre a las 12:08 y finalizó a las 15:03, durando 2 horas y 54 minutos. La máxima cobertura del sol fue el 72% y se dio a las 13:37. Next, please. Para conseguir los resultados de las siguientes mediciones, utilizamos los protocolos GLOB de temperatura actual y superficial y cobertura de nubes. El periodo de observación total fue de 4 horas. La toma de temperatura actual y superficial se hizo en intervalos de 10, 5 y nuevamente de 10 minutos. La toma de cobertura de nubes se hizo cada 15 minutos. El registro de velocidad y dirección del viento se tomó en intervalos de 30, 10 y nuevamente de 30 minutos. La observación de hormigas se realizó cada 15 minutos y la de aves de manera espontánea. Para registrar la temperatura superficial y actual, utilizamos unas planillas proporcionadas por GLOB. Para la temperatura superficial, utilizamos un termómetro infrarrojo y para la actual, uno de alcohol. Next, please.
Nosotros decidimos que uno de los seres que íbamos a observar eran las hormigas, de la especie cortadora. Este tipo de hormigas es muy característico de nuestro territorio, ya que su taxonomía hace que sean muy fáciles de reconocer. También se ven en varios sectores del patio de la escuela, en los hormigueros que ellas mismas construyen. Lo que ellas hacen es cortar material vegetal para luego cultivar hongos, con los cuales alimentan a toda su colonia. Y lo que sucedió con ellas durante el eclipse fue que cuando se acercaba al punto máximo se veía bastante cantidad de movimiento, pero cuando el eclipse disminuía se quedaban en la zona cercana al hormiguero. Next, please. Otro de los seres seleccionados fueron las aves, ya que en el preescolar hay gran variedad de ellas, predominando las cotorras, golondrinas, horneros y las palomas de monte. Y a pesar de que estas especies son las que más abundan en el sitio de estudio, se pudieron avistar otras variedades, como sabía, doradito, calandria, etc. Y lo que sucedió con ellas durante el eclipse fue que cuando se acercaba el pico máximo se resguardaban en el patio trasero del preescolar, y cuando el eclipse finalizaba se volvía nuevamente a ver más movimiento. Next, please.
¿Qué sucedió con el viento y la presencia de nubes durante el eclipse? La velocidad más alta registrada en todo el día fue de 17 km por hora, registrándose a las 12:37. La velocidad más baja fue de 8 km por hora, que se registró en 3 distintos horarios, a las 11:37, 1:37 y 1:57. El viento venía desde el noroeste y nordeste de la escuela. A las 12:52 fue la única hora en la que hubo una cobertura de nube con un promedio de 0,25 del cielo cubierto. Next, please.
Con respecto a la temperatura actual, al comienzo de las misiones había una temperatura de 28,17 grados centígrados, la cual fue la más alta. Durante la media hora previa y la media hora posterior al pico máximo del eclipse, hubo un descenso progresivo que comenzó en 25,67 grados centígrados y llegó a 24 grados centígrados. Y a medida que el eclipse comenzó a disminuir, la temperatura aumentaba. Al final de las observaciones, la temperatura llegó hasta 27,67 grados centígrados, casi lo mismo que al comienzo. Entonces, se puede decir que cuando se acercaba al punto máximo del eclipse, la temperatura disminuía. Next, please.
En cuanto a la temperatura superficial, se registró lo siguiente. A poco de iniciar la medición, a las 11:57, se registró una temperatura de 39 grados. Sin embargo, esta no fue la mayor. La mayor fue de 42 grados, una hora después, a las 12:57. El menor registro de temperatura ocurrió a las 13:37, es decir, en el punto máximo del eclipse. El registro a esta hora fue de 24 grados. Next, please.
Con respecto a la temperatura actual, se puede decir que a 11:47 se veían 10 hormigas y muy poco movimiento en los caminos, pero a medida que se iba acercando el punto máximo del eclipse, se veía cada vez más cantidad. De 11:49 a 1:07 se avistaron 50 hormigas con bastante movimiento en el tronco y muy poco en los caminos. En ese momento, la temperatura había aumentado. De 1:17 a 1:37 se avistaron 70 con movimiento en el tronco y nada en el camino. La temperatura disminuyó. A la 1:47 se vieron 90 con bastante movimiento en el tronco. Algunas se las veía con comida, pero en los caminos no se veía movimiento. La temperatura había aumentado. De 1:57 a 15:37 se veían 100 con bastante movimiento y la temperatura seguía aumentando. Entonces se puede decir que durante el punto máximo del eclipse seguía más movimiento, pero cuando el eclipse disminuía, se quedaban en la zona cercana al hormiguero. Next, please.
Este fue el comportamiento de las aves con respecto a la temperatura superficial. A las 11:40 había golondrinas posadas en un cable. 10 minutos después, a las 11:50, cuando la temperatura aumentó 3 grados, se consiguió avistar un grupo de teros. A las 12:14, la temperatura aumentó 4 grados y se consiguió ver una calandria. A las 14, las golondrinas seguían siendo la única especie y la temperatura seguía estática. Estas son nuestras conclusiones sobre el comportamiento de las aves en función a la temperatura actual. A las 13:22 se veían aves en el patio trasero, es decir, al oeste, y la temperatura era de 24 grados. Se avistó una golondrina en el punto máximo del eclipse. En ese momento la temperatura era de 24 grados. Cuando la temperatura aumentó a las 13:55, se avistó un grupo de golondrinas. Entonces, se puede concluir que cuando se acercaba al punto máximo del eclipse, las aves se dirigían hacia el oeste del predio escolar. En este sitio hay una gran variedad y cantidad de especies de árboles que fueron utilizados como resguardo. Se concluye que dichas especies modificaron sus hábitos diurnos, mostrando conductas que se relacionan con el ocaso diario. Next, please.
Estas son nuestras conclusiones generales. El comportamiento de las hormigas cambió cuando aumentó la velocidad del viento. Ellas comenzaron a mostrarse más activas. De las aves se puede concluir que cuando se acercaba el punto máximo del eclipse, cambiaron sus hábitos diurnos. Desde aquí finalizo nuestra presentación. Muchas gracias por escucharnos. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for some great presentations. So we have a couple of questions to ask our presenters. The first one is for Puerto Rico. So the question for our students in Puerto Rico is, did you find a new mosquito? And if so, what type of mosquito was it? And did you start to study that mosquito?
Well, at first sight, we don't know what mosquito is, but thank you for the Glow Observer app. In the mosquito section, it helps us identify which mosquito is. So at first, the questions are like, do you want to continue the larva investigation? Is your specimen a mosquito larvae? So we observe the water if there are larvae. They ask us if they have long thin siphon, a stout blunt siphon, if there's no siphon or sharp pointed siphon. And we identified the Aedes aegypti at first. And at first we thought it was gonna be that mosquito only, but then we found the Culex. And we were surprised because like I mentioned before, there were an imposter called Mitch larvae. And we were confused because it seemed like a mosquito larvae at first. And we did some research and found that they imitate the mosquitoes. So that may be new for us to discover a larvae that imitates the mosquitoes, the Mitch larvae.
Gotcha. And a follow-up question to that is, do you plan on continuing your research on other parts of the island? And do you think that would be beneficial as well?
Yes, we plan to continue the experiment, but we want to reach out to organizations that are about mosquitoes, that they reach to people. So we wanted to first communicate with them, tell us about our experiment so we could have a bigger platform and more experts to help us.
Thank you very much. Great work, by the way.
Thank you.
So we have a question for the students in Argentina. Esta pregunta es para los niños en Argentina. La persona dice, felicidades, me gustó mucho su trabajo. Tengo una pregunta. ¿Qué fue la más difícil de clasificar los árboles? So in English is, congratulations. I really liked your work. I have a question. What was most difficult to classify of the trees? And Mindy, maybe perhaps you can pronounce it a lot better than I can if you want to repeat the question, if they don't understand it.
Yeah, esta pregunta es, ¿qué fue la más difícil de clasificar los árboles para Argentina?
Okay, looks like they may be a bit shy there.
¿Alguien de Argentina quiere responder? Yeah.
That's fine. We can go on to another question.
There's another question for the team from Uruguay. ¿Cuál es la relación entre el número de hormigas y el ciclo alimentario y el programa del globe? So what is the relationship between the number of ants, the food cycle, and the globe program?
En realidad, lo que se tomó en cuenta fue las hormigas en relación a la cobertura de nubes, la temperatura actual y superficial, velocidad y dirección del viento.
Ya, perfecto. Gracias, Antonio.
Another question would be for the students in Uruguay. Why do they think the animals' behavior changed kind of before and after the eclipse? If you can ask that, Ndvi.
Ya, para los estudiantes en Uruguay, ¿por qué creen que el comportamiento animal cambió antes y después del eclipse?
Porque cuando llegó el punto máximo del eclipse, los animales pensaban que era de tarde y empezaron a hacer lo que ellos hacían cuando ya empezaba a oscurecer.
And one more thing I just want to mention about our students from Uruguay. I think I'm going to say what is on everyone's mind. We love their uniforms with the big bow tie and their white shirts. It looks so adorable.
Thank you so much.
De nada. Mindy, Amy, I think that's all the questions we have. So I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right, well, that is all of the presentations that we have. I just want to thank all of our students who worked so hard and did such a great job presenting both today and yesterday. And I just want to congratulate you all on your hard work. And as Peter has been saying, it's been a really weird year with the pandemic, and we still appreciate your hard work and your effort and your data collection. And you all just did a wonderful job, and I was very happy to see your work and your presentations. And I'm very blown away by the hard work that we continue to get every year. And I want to thank everybody who's here watching with us. And we hope that you enjoyed it as well.